The client asked for a very specific build. He wanted a Helderburg that was classic but modern. He wanted to tie the two elements together. And if you know me, you know I am inspired by Winston Churchill. Hence, this Helderburg is named Churchill. And the inspiration really came from thinking about who was Winston Churchill. He was very modern in his thoughts, but he was very classic in his attire and how he presented himself. He was the true, authentic gentleman. Helderburg celebrates Winston Churchill. As Winston Churchill once said, "Without tradition, art is a flock of sheep without a shepherd." So the design of this Helderburg for a very specific client, and this is his second Helderburg, by the way, I took that thought process of what would a Helderburg look like if Winston Churchill was to drive it? And the color was, of course, the obvious choice. While this looks like a very traditional Land Rover color, it's not. It's a custom mix color. And it's a beautiful color in the sense that the paint just looks so deep. It looks like you could reach into it. It's a very dark green without a metallic. And in the shade, it looks black, but it just really resonates with what a lot of individuals would call a British racing green or a hunter green, that type of color. So it does have that very British feel with a little German twist. The color on this 130, I think it does it so well. And then of course the roof, I painted that black with a non-metallic paint, and just the contrast. I mean, the beauty of a Helderburg, at least this is what clients tell me, and I strive to do, that when you look at it, nothing stands out. Nothing is saying, oh, look at me, look at me. It all flows, it all works together, that it essentially could look like it came from the factory back in 1997 this way, if the factory wasn't building it as a farm truck, but building it as a luxury vehicle. And to kind of expand on that a little bit, if you just look at the stance, you look at how we do the wheels and the tires, which the wheels have the proper offset, so they're far enough away so they're not rubbing, but that's what creates that stance. That it doesn't look like, and you've heard me say this numerous times, it doesn't look like a teenage boy with his father's credit card just adding parts in a frivolous way, that it doesn't pull it together. And that's what's critically important when I'm designing, is that everything has to flow. Granted, I will do a couple little pops of color, for example, like the red tow hooks. I do really like the bumper that we designed, that we're building, and it's because of it's subtle. I'm not saying that we have to be limited to that, because we definitely don't, because every Helderburg we build is one of one. And we make the decisions whether we want a winch or what type of a bumper. Do we want a bull bar? Do we want the A bar, whatever you would want to call it? But there is staples of a Helderburg that always stay true. For example, the grills. The grills are generally always the barbecue style, whether it's the one that we do in Germany or whether it's more of a standard grill like this. But we do have the bump outs. And this bump out not only serves a purpose, but mechanically that is, but it also serves a design cue, because it creates stages of layers, more or less, where the billet aluminum headlight surrounds with the broken beam headlights, which draw your eye in, and then the bump out happens here that runs even with the front of the bumper, and then just the Puma bonnet and the way the lines of the Puma bonnet come in, and then we have the vents up here, the louvers. The louvers just create more visual appeal on it. So as you're looking at a Helderburg, your eye goes from point to point to point and just creates a really, I guess you could say, a visual appealing build where nothing looks out of place. So we talked about the color. Let's talk about the roll cage. It is a functional roll cage, and it'll be interesting to see if our client uses it off-road, which I wouldn't be surprised that he does. But what I mean by a functional roll cage is it's attached all the way to the frame. So it is supporting what's going on here. And then we did the lights, and I did the lights in an amber. A lot of times you will see everyone doing them in clear, but I've learned through experience from doing my overlanding where I've played with the lights that the amber really does cut through the fog. It cuts through the dust on the road versus the white light bounces back and kind of blinds you as a driver, but the amber light does a really good job. It lights really well. And it just happened to be that the amber lens lights also complement the color of the truck. So again, as you're watching this video or looking at the pictures on helderburg.com, you'll see that when you're looking at a Helderburg build, that your eye goes from this point to that point to that point, and that again, that's all of the design. These lights, I absolutely love them for the simple fact that they have light on the sides too. So not only are they lighting the path in front of you, they're lighting the path on the sides too, which allows you to be able to see any wildlife that's getting ready to jump out. And then of course, when you pull to a stop, you can see more or less this becomes a ditch light versus us doing ditch lights over here too. So moving on, it does have a rack. The rack is functional, usable, that it's going to be interesting to see if Dustin uses the rack, and again, I wouldn't be surprised. Moving back, arches. I always do the arches in the front, whether I do the semi-wide arch or the really wide arch, which you can see the really wide arch on some of our double cabs that we've built, the 110 double cabs. But I like the cleanliness of this, that you don't see the bolts, the bolt holes, and it's just wide enough. I'm not saying that it's going to keep whether it's mud or whatever off the sides, but we haven't had any issue with rock chips. And I think that's for the simple fact that our paint job is unlike anyone else. The paint job is a concours level, and when you see it in person, you'll completely understand. And I mentioned how deep it is, but the amount of clear coat on our 3-stage paint job is really, it rivals the most expensive luxury cars and some of the best built cars that are in car shows, classic cars, that type of thing. But the point that I'm making with the amount of clear coat, when you run your hand down it, you can feel it. Not only does it feel like glass, but you can just feel that there's a lot of depth to this paint. We don't cut any corners on paint. And then, of course, sound deadening is also a big part. So when you're knocking on the doors, you'll hear how solid it is. And that's all the sound deadening. So everything that we're putting together makes a total package because it is those small little details. Moving back, of course, the billet aluminum door handles right here that have a very nice feel. Traditionally, you have plastic door handles on a classic Land Rover, and that's what you'll see on a lot of the builds. Not saying that they're bad, but again, it's those little details that make the difference. The billet aluminum hinges, which are hand milled, and then even the rock sliders that we put, which are down the side. And it really, a lot of times, this is a design cue. These rock sliders are made to be able to go over rocks and not cause damage to the body, but we add the step-up bar, so it kind of defeats that purpose. But if Dustin's going to go off-roading, it's easy enough to pull these step-up bars off, and then he could use these as the sliders and not have any damage. And again, it increases the actual height of the vehicle, so the clearance of what's going on. Moving back where I talked about the front arches, let's talk about lack of a rear arch. And I have people that have asked me that too. Well, why don't you have any flares, any arches on the back? You need to do that. And it's like, well, maybe, how do I phrase this? It doesn't fit the design that I'm going for. That I love just the bed on a 130. The separate bed on a 130, which oftentimes a 130 is confused with a 110 double cab. But I mean, this is a full usable bed, and what it allows you to do is carry more stuff. I mean, you have a 6-foot bed here, so it's traditional that of a regular American-made pickup truck. And the way to tell the difference is the separation where the bed is separate from the body versus a 110 double cab. It's all part of the body. It's one thing. And with a 110 double cab, you only get a 42-inch bed. So it gives you that you know, James Bond Spectre, really good look, but it's not as functional. And Dustin is the kind of gentleman that's going to need to use his vehicle, whether he's carrying whatever he's carrying. So anyway, so we addressed the arches. Now let's talk about the suspension on this very special build, talking about Churchill. And I'm just kind of laying the stage here to explain the suspension a little bit. It is lifted. It's lifted approximately 3 inches, but the prop shafts are custom. So in other words, we custom make the prop shaft, because when we're raising the vehicle up, the prop shaft needs to be longer so things aren't having to stretch and wear the parts out. The radius arms are custom because we're turning the axles back, because whenever you lift a truck, and if you lift it improperly, imagine this is the wheels and the axles, everything twists this way, which wears parts out. So when we do the radius arms, we're able to twist things back down. Then that means, of course, we have to do longer brake lines. So there's a lot of things that happen whenever you lift a Helderburg to do it properly. And again, you should never cut any corners. If you're going to do it right. And then continuing on, that we started having more and more clients partake in off-road adventures with us. And I feel Dustin's going to be that gentleman. So it does have Fox shocks, but it has Fox dual reservoir. So it has the main shock, and then it has a stainless steel braided hose that goes to another, essentially, reservoir that holds additional fluid. And what that does is when we're off-roading and that suspension's working really hard for a long period of time, it can start to heat up and then it doesn't work as well. But this is the dual reservoir suspension, so it will continue to work really well. And then the coil springs, because this is a straight axle, coil springs are progressive. So when he's on the road, on the highway, it will handle extremely well. And if he's on a washboard gravel road, like we did in Montana, which if you haven't seen that video, go to helderburg.com and watch that video. But when I was on those washboard gravel roads where they'd recently graded it and it was very washboarded, the other gentlemen, the guys, my friends that were with me, and they were driving another vehicle, a modern vehicle, and they were begging to be able to drive the Helderburg because the suspension was handling those washboards fantastically. You didn't even feel it, but in the modern car, which was an SUV, by the way, you could definitely feel it. So moving in, it is a turbo diesel, and it's a turbo diesel that's our custom design. So you can drive it, you can enjoy it, you can tow it, you can enjoy a lot of things. So the overall, being a 130, it's a big vehicle, it's a heavy vehicle, but it's not as big as one would think. And to give you a size comparison, if you've seen, for example, a Ford Raptor, it's pretty equal to the size of a Ford Raptor. But it is heavy. This is all aluminum body. It has a steel frame. It has the roll cage. It has a very plush interior. It has the turbo diesel engine. So there's some weight, some significance behind this vehicle. And I do have people that will ask me, and I'm no accountant, but I've had clients tell me that yes, it does apply for the Section 179 tax savings due to the weight. So being that the weight is over 6,000 pounds, it was important to put a really, let's just say a very sufficient braking system on there. And we did our exclusive Helderburg brakes. We did it with a yellow caliper. A lot of times you see the red calipers. So we have the 4 pistons in the front and then the 4 pistons in the rear with cross-drilled rotors. And it does stop. It comes to a sudden stop. So braking, yeah, we did it. It's important when you get to this type of weight. Not to mention that we've raised it up, and each wheel and tire weighs over 100, together as a package weighs over 100 pounds. So that's a lot of unslung weight as this vehicle is rolling down the road. And to get all that to stop takes a serious braking system. And we did add that. So that's a lot about the exterior. I think I've covered that. Now let's talk about the interior, because if you were to look at the outside, it has that modern feel, just like Winston Churchill's thought process was a very modern feel, or a modern thought process. But on the inside, that's where we pulled the classic gentleman in. And this is going to be the type of interior that I am absolutely positively sure you're going to go, oh my gosh, the leather color is just beautiful. And I have to agree, the leather color is absolutely stunning. And then the little pops of color in there just complement everything. So let's look at the interior. Let's talk about the audio now. So let's talk about the obvious thing right here, what we're looking at, and that's the color of the interior. The interior, again, inspired by Winston Churchill, and thinking about when he would ride his horses, what would the style of his saddle be? What would be the color of his saddle? And what would it look like after it had some patina? And that's how I came up with the leather color, that it feels very saddle inspired and almost with a little bit of patina to it. And as this Helderburg's being driven more and more, the seats will start to get the patina. And the one thing you'll also notice, not only the color, but the stitching that I chose to do. I normally do a diamond stitch or different patterns, but I felt this was a little truer to the time, meaning that I was giving it the classic feel. So we have the modern on the exterior, the modern elements. This is a timeless exterior color, but the interior color is also timeless. The seat style is a classic Defender style. These seats were custom made, but we wanted to replicate that classic Defender style that you would have actually purchased in a Defender in like 1985 or around 1985, 1987, and just pulling that together. So we got Dustin's measurements and built the seat specific to him, not to go too large, but also not too small, so it's comfortable. The pattern is fluted, so fluting down the seats, fluting on the center console. And what I mean by fluting is it's just a long, no diamond stitch, but a long flute is what it is. And then on the inside, I mean, we have not applied the copper badge that will have the client's name on it and then the name of the vehicle yet. That's coming really soon as those are being anodized and engraved. But looking at the dash itself, you'll notice that we have the large screen Alpine in here. And then the audio system in here is one of our high-fidelity systems. It has the handmade Focal speakers that are mounted in the lower part of the air conditioner and the seat boxes in the rear. And we have the Marconi amp, which is made in Italy, that's under the seat here. And the crossovers where we have the Focal with the beryllium tweeters in the dash, which these are the best of the best. And then all of the aluminum accents in here. I mean, even the shift knob right here, if you look at the rod itself, it is a nickel-plated rod. So we wanted to pull it in, shorter boot, but we wanted to pull in that classic element and intertwine it with the modern elements, for example, like the audio system. And then, of course, the classic Helderburg steering wheel, that wood with the rivets, so it just pulls everything together. And then the headliner is an Italian Alcantara suede, which is a color that complements the seats. So when you climb into this Helderburg and you just sit and you can smell the leather, and you can feel the seats are like a glove leather, but it's a thicker leather, so it can take a lot of abuse. Your dogs can climb on it, kids can climb on it, but just how supple it is. It has a high wax content, but when you sit here and you smell the leather and you just let the breeze blow through the windows, it's seriously life-changing. Might sound kind of crazy, but it is. Because the seats just hug you, and the smell of the leather and just the tactile feel of the wood steering wheel. But then when you start it up and you hear that turbo diesel, it's pretty magical. And when you are driving and you give it some acceleration and you hear the whistle of the turbo, because this does move down the road really well, it is a very visceral experience and very enjoyable experience. So again, we've tied the modern elements because it drives like a modern SUV, but we've tied the classic elements in the sense of the way we did the interior and the exterior. This is clearly a gentleman's Helderburg 130 Defender. So now that we're in the rear, probably one of the first things, well, there's going to be a few things you're noticing right now, but I'm going to pick out the first thing that you notice. As I'm standing here, and if I'm sitting in this seat, the first thing that I will notice is just the headroom. the amount of headroom that you have in here. And as I'm standing looking at the 60/40 bench, I can see how high, how much headroom. I don't care. Somebody could be wearing a 10-gallon Stetson hat. They are not going to touch this headliner here. They're not going to be anywhere close. Somebody could be 6'10" and they're not going to touch that headliner. So I just wanted to point that out. But the 60/40 bench split, understanding how Dustin was going to use his Helderburg, we made the recommendation and like, okay, well, if we're keeping that classic design somewhat, let's go with the 60/40 bench, because this is a style of a seat that you would see in 1985 in a classic Land Rover, is this type of a bench. I mean, and I'm talking about a 130 or a 110. This is what you would see. And it does have that nostalgia. It also provides more leg room, but it just has a very cool feel. And one of the things that you can do with the 60/40 bench split is you can fold your seat over and gives you more storage space. But you could leave the seat up and it provides a comfortable space for your kids to lay down, take a nap, if you don't want them wearing the seatbelt or if you don't mind. But of course, in my case, it's a perfect place for Lucy to lay down and be comfortable. But it just provides a really cool effect. And then when you're looking in the back here, you can see the custom boxes that we built. And then it has the Focal speakers here. We have the amplifier that's right here. But just looking in the back, you can see that without mistake, and looking at everything, a Helderburg is completely disassembled. Every last nut, every bolt, every part, every wire, every seal, and everything is brought to perfect standards. I mean, it's essentially a new vehicle. One of the other things that you'll notice in here too is we have the carpet, but I wanted to keep more of that classic design. And under the seats, you'll see the paint. You'll see that green, that beautiful green paint that's on the outside. We brought it on the inside. Again, showing how everything was brought to perfection. And under the bench seat here too, you have two clasps that you can undo, and it gives you additional storage space here too. So just pulling it all together, it's fabulous. Notice the pockets right here too, so you have some storage. And then if you are a passenger with all this headroom and you're seeing the beautiful brown Alcantara suede and you just want to feel more of the wind to come in to blow that leather smell around, well, you have the sliding rear window. You grab it, you open it up, and it just gives you that much more of an outside adventure experience. And you know, one of the things that I really just love about a 110 double cab or a 130 is these rear corner windows. Because when was the last time you seen a car company build a window that was so beautiful in the sense that it's a semicircle? And I just think that's beautiful. And that's something that a lot of times when you're looking at the pictures, you probably don't see these semicircle glass windows. And these are so rare and so hard to get. They are like gold because no one's making them anymore. Hence, that's one of the things that makes a 130 or a 110 double cab so rare, is just all of these little parts that are required to bring it back to full spec. It's just, they're really simply not in existence anymore. So I'll let you take it all in, watch the video, look at the seats. And if you have any questions, then of course, just leave a comment and we'll answer you. So there's a few other elements. Again, it's all in the details that make it a Helderburg that you simply don't see on other builds. Is all of the billet aluminum work. This is billet aluminum. This is not plastic. Billet aluminum, and even the window cranks that we mill that are billet aluminum. There's something magical about just the touch of metal. Normally this is plastic. Everything's plastic. And then even the billet aluminum door handles that's got the finger grooves right here. So again, a lot of billet aluminum work is going on, and I've said it and I'm gonna say it again, but it's those small little details that make a significant difference in how everything comes together and how everything flows, that it looks like it was meant to be. There's so many things to love about a 130. In fact, I personally own a 130, which is Dragon, which if you haven't seen that, I pulled the modern and the classic in, so just go to helderburg.com and look for Dragon, which mine is a gold 130. But again, there's so many things. Even the design of the taillights, how it's done differently than a 110 double cab or a 110 wagon, just the inset. To me, it feels like jewelry. It feels like a very nice Patek Philippe, and how, you know, just everything is layered and there's dimension on what's happening here. That you'll see the trim piece right here. Well, actually, it's not a trim piece. It's part of the rear tub here, of how it's raised out, and then this plate goes in, and then of course I did the clear lights, again representing jewelry or watches in my case. And then you have the step up right here, but just the ribbing of the rear tailgate right here. It's just, it looks rugged, but it looks elegant at the same time. And I'm going to say it one more time, but trying to find these parts is getting so difficult. And a 130 in itself is extremely rare, because they generally were not for civilian use. These vehicles were being used for logging companies, electrical companies, so they were work trucks. So the amount of abuse they suffered just pretty much put them into the ground, done, that they were beyond restoration. So anytime we come across a 130 that can be restored, we are absolutely buying it, but those opportunities are few and far between. That's why I will probably keep Dragon forever, because it is the type of vehicle that simply can't be replaced. But I mean, any classic Land Rover Defender that is truly a British-built Land Rover Defender, meaning it's not a Quasar, not a Santana, not a Turkish Defender, that, because those are plentiful, but those are completely different and at a completely different topic. But if it was originally a left-hand drive British-built Defender and a 110 or a 90, and especially in a 130, we are buying it, and we will buy as many as we can buy, because we have a short amount of time before these are non-existent. There's no doubt. So, but just looking at all the elements, like it's got little hooks here. Love these little hooks. And what that allows is do a canvas cover with your cotton rope to be able to have your cover over the bed. Or you can have a hoop system and have a soft top on the back, and then have the rear door, which lassos, ties. So it has a very nautical feeling too, which I love. And then of course, just the handles, just the way they're designed here to open the back, and how the spring steel. It's so utilitarian, but it's just, I just find it exciting. One of the questions I get too is, can you do a trailer hitch? Absolutely, you can do a trailer hitch on this. And it just attaches back here. And then of course I have people say, what about the bumper? And it's a 130. 130s weren't designed to have a bumper. They don't have a bumper, and it gives a very nice, well, approach angle, departure angle is what it's doing. Because again, these were built specifically as work trucks, and that's exactly what it is. And it really is cool. It's magical, because the number of individuals that's seen a 130 in person is far rarer than what individuals seen in a 90 or a 110. They just simply, there's not many of them in the United States. And I love mine for that factor, because I do love the rare, the unusual, the unique, the one of a kind, the things that other individuals are not going to have. And I do a lot of different car events and even Land Rover events. And the number of times that I've seen a 130 in person, I can count on one hand, and I still have digits left over. And I've been doing this for a very long time. So this is a beautiful Helderburg 130, and it was inspired with a classic modern design, hence Winston Churchill.